Director of Communications for the Labour Party, Alistair Campbell, who joins me now. Alistair, MPs, some coming out and criticising openly Dominic Cummings, some, as we've just heard, supporting him. It's all well and good, but he's still the story.
Well, he certainly is, and also just to clarify something that your previous interviewee said, the clause that Dominic Cummings is quoted as his defence for these exceptional circumstances for his child, that clause was inserted into the bill with a view to protecting children at risk of violence and women in particular at risk of domestic violence. So let's not pretend that that covers these circumstances. There are no exceptional circumstances in this, as far as I'm concerned. He should have stayed at home. He actually, if you go through Boris Johnson's statement the day before and the contradictions with Cummings' statement yesterday, Johnson said that both of them were coming down with coronavirus. Cummings couldn't admit to that because when he went home, he then went back to Downing Street, thereby, if he had got coronavirus, putting other people at risk of infection. And what you're seeing today with these sort of nodding dog cabinet ministers coming out to read out these ridiculous scripts they've been given to read, is that the story is unravelling. And I agree with all of the people who've been on your programme today and all of the people who've been phoning into the radio stations that I've been talking to who are saying, can we please talk about something else? I wish we were, because a crisis like this needs the Prime Minister and the Cabinet to be focusing on nothing else but getting the job done. And every single one of them, literally the whole Cabinet, the whole government machine has been mobilised to try to save Dom. It's the most pathetic, craven act of a bunch of pathetic, craven people that I think we've ever had in our history.
Well, hang on. There are plenty of people on Twitter right now watching interviews that we're doing this afternoon saying, look, it's you, the media, that are doing this. Leave him alone. He's put his defence out there. The Prime Minister backs him. Let's move on.
Well, people are entitled to believe that, and they're entitled to have that opinion. But then, what does that say about what sort of country we've become? I thought one of the most hysterically funny headlines today was the Daily Telegraph splash headline falling for that nonsense about opening a few markets. UK returns to normality. Yesterday was one of the most abnormal days in the political life of this country's history. And you can't just sweep this stuff under the carpet. Because, look, we may, not least because the lockdown is effectively breaking down, not least because of the way the government has handled it, we could be heading, let's say we are heading, for another wave of infection. Let's say at that point that the Prime Minister has to come out, as he did a few weeks ago, and say to the country, this is going to require the resolve of all of us. We've all got to play our part. We've all got to do our bit. And did you notice yesterday, Simon, how when he was giving that ridiculous 7 o'clock press conference, how he went through all the things the public should do? Did you notice that staying at home has just been dropped? And the scientific measures, the scientific measures are out the window. This is now crisis management on the health of millions of people being decided by this pathetic bunch of people sitting around saying, how can we get Dom off the front pages? It's pathetic, Simon. I mean, I know you've got to, do devil's advocate, but you know it can't be defended.
All I would say, and many people watching you would say, look, here you go, two media lovies there discussing the morning papers when there is a serious... Well, come on, there is a crisis out there. Yes, people are dying.
I agree with them. I agree with them. That's the point I'm making. I don't give a damn what the papers say. I'm saying that this lot is all they care about. Politics to Johnson, journalist. Politics to Gove, journalist. It's a game. It's about how you keep in with Rupert Murdoch. It's about how you make sure that the right-wing editorials are on board. They spend more time talking to, worrying about, fretting over a small group of media lovies, to use your phrase, than they do about the millions of British people or the tens of thousands that their incompetence, their indifference, Johnson boasting about shaking hands with infected patients, them saying we'll squash the sombrero without any of this nonsense that these silly, pesky foreigners are doing with their overreactions. They've killed people, Simon.
I just know, Alistair, there are people watching you right now who are going to say, hang on a minute, and where did all this start? Where did those backstreet people in Downing Street begin to wield all this power? And the buck stops with you on that, doesn't it?
Oh, for God's sake, Simon, please, get a grip. Look, if I actually thought you believed that, I'd laugh. This idea that a prime minister shouldn't have effective, strong communications and strategy people around him is a myth. There have been spin doctors around ever since Julius Caesar wrote the greatest soundbite of all time, Veni, Vidi, Vici. There are plenty of amazing pieces of communication in the Bible. So let's stop this nonsense that this all sort of came along with New Labour. And here's another thing. I really look forward to two things happening in the near future. This lot of charlatans trying not to have a public inquiry, and then when they fail on that, the public inquiry. I've had 6 inquiries into my role in relation to one incident in my fairly long time alongside Tony Blair, cleared of the lot of them. This lot, I could take you through line by line through Cummings' press conference yesterday, and I reckon I could find between 12 and 15 things that if I could get him for half an hour, I would absolutely destroy him because of the lies he's told, the inconsistencies with the story of his prime minister, of his wife. I mean, he actually directly contradicted what his wife had written about what happened in Durham. So I won't take the comparison, Simon. I just won't. These people are liars and charlatans. They're being found out, and the country deserves better.
Well, the country deserves leadership right now and to be led
Correct.
through this crisis. So put your crisis management hat on. Where does it go from here?
There's no point asking me that because from the start, listen, if your listeners want to know what I would think about in a crisis management, I wrote a blog on my website about 9 or 10 weeks ago now about how, and I was being supportive of the government, by the way, because I said at the start, this is off the scale hard, harder than anything we ever had to deal with, harder than anything Tony Blair had to deal with. And I set out, I think it was 20 points that I thought, no, it might have been 10, that you need to do in a crisis. Now, the most important, I said, was that government has to devise, execute and narrate strategy by taking the public into their confidence about their decision making. The country has to have clear, strong, consistent, high-profile leadership. Now, OK, Johnson became ill. I accept that. But both sides of the illness, low profile, invisible, holidays, 10 days in Chequers. Since he's come back, he did the briefing yesterday, not because he wants to do any of these briefings, because he thinks he's above talking to his former colleagues in the media. I went through all of these things and people can see they still apply, every single one of them. The need for a strong centre. Let me tell you about the centre. The centre isn't just about a clique in Downing Street. The centre, you ensure that every part of government is brought in, and that includes the London Mayor, the Scottish First Minister, the Welsh First Minister. What have they done with these people? They pushed them away. They've insulted them a lot of the time. And thereby, they've ended up where there's actually not even a coherent United Kingdom strategy. They're hopeless. They're utterly hopeless. So there's no point asking me what I would do because they wouldn't do it. And what you saw yesterday...
Well, no, there is a point. There absolutely is a point. And actually, you know, we've had this tirade but where I was being serious as to where you would go from here. People want to know the positive from here.
Okay, well, I'll tell you. I'll get it. Here. I'll tell you what I'll do. You need to develop, execute, narrate strategy. That means you have to have a clear strategy. They don't have one. What is their strategy at the moment? What is it? Don't know. You need to show leadership, a strong centre. You need to throw everything at the crisis. Number 4, they are throwing everything at saving Dominic Cummings. Here's one. Number 5, you have to use experts well. They are using experts as political cover. 6, you have to deploy a strong team. Oh my God. Alok Sharma, Robert Jenrick, Gavin Williamson, these muppets that they put up at these press conferences. 7, you make the big moments count. Every single big moment that Johnson's done, he's fluffed it. His 2 statements have caused more confusion than others. 8, you take the public with you. Right, well, they might just take, I know they're obsessed with opinion polls, just take a look at the one that's come out today. 9, you show genuine empathy for the public. If I hear one more time that their thoughts and prayers are with the people that they've helped to kill. 10, you give hope, but you don't give false hope. Johnson specialises in false hope. So there you are. That's what I'd do. They won't do it because they don't know how to do it, Simon.
use the word fluffed for anybody who might have thought they heard something different. I know that. I wish you wouldn't sit on the fence during these interviews. So it's really good to talk to you. Alistair, thank you very much. Alistair Campbell there.
My pleasure.